Welcome to our next episode of the 5 Moments of Need AI Matters podcast series. This is Chris King, one of the co-hosts you'll meet throughout the series. We aim to bring order and focus to the AI discussion in and around the L&D world, exploring how it aligns with frameworks like the 5 Moments of Need and content management. Throughout the coming months, we will be sharing both expert insights and real-life examples from practitioners. In this AI Matters podcast, Gottfredson sat down with Josh Cavlier to talk about how generative AI is being integrated into learning and development across organizations. Josh is an educator, speaker, author, and host of Brainpower, a weekly AI training show on LinkedIn. Josh and Con explore how strategic AI integration can enhance organizational learning. Josh emphasizes the importance of robust AI policies to manage risks and the crucial need for upskilling and transitioning employees as job roles evolve with AI advancements. Join us as we unpack these key insights and their implications for the future of workplaces.
Welcome, everyone. This is Gottfredson, one of your co-hosts in the AI Matters podcast series, and I'm joined today by a remarkable leader in the world of AI. Josh, welcome. It's just such an honor to have you here. Would you mind taking a minute and telling us a little bit about you and your background and particularly your experience with AI?
Sure, Con. Thanks for having me. Well, this is my 30th year in learning and development, believe it or not. I got my start back in 1994 as an art director for an e-learning firm run by Dick Hanshaw. And that's where I really cut my teeth and learned everything about this industry, and did that for about 5 years. Immediately following that, I started a training company, Lodestone. We were one of the top Adobe authorized training partners in the United States. In that capacity, I would go into L&D departments and spin them up on technology. Did tons of Captivate, Storyline, even Authorware and Director, that type of training over the years, even some LXP and LMS implementations. So was very blessed, got to go into all these unique environments, got to see different types of structures and how the L&D function was set up, specific around the implementation of technology. So Lodestone ran its course. I decided to jump back into corporate. I call those the COVID years because I got hired at American Tire Distributors as a learning architect. So an individual contributor, not a leader, an individual contributor. And that was 5 weeks before COVID, and then ran that through for about 3 years until COVID ended. And then so did my time with American Tire, because AI showed up. And so, it's interesting having, my whole career looked at technology, specifically around human performance, all the way back. The first job that I did was mainframe training. So got to really see the evolution of CD-ROM to mobile phone or internet, then to mobile phone. And then when AI showed up, I was like, all right, well, this is different. And I went down the rabbit hole, Con, and I have not found my way out of it since then. So over the past year, I have been consulting. I had been running workshops and webinars around AI, both from a strategic and tactical standpoint, and currently, doing a lot of speaking, going to conferences, and just trying to share knowledge and information about my lens, my perspective, and how I see AI being a catalyst for advancements in human performance.
Oh, that's wonderful, Josh. So when you mention strategic view of AI, I'd really like us to step into that a little bit, because organizations need to have a strategy, right, for how to deal with this. It's coming at every part of an organization, and it seems to me that L&D can play a vital role in that strategic embracing of the potential and capability of what AI brings to that. So let's talk about that part of this, and then we'll see to what degree we can get tactical when we get to L&D.
Sure.
Is that okay? So what are you seeing as you work with organizations that our L&D community could benefit from as it relates to the organizational impact and what we ought to be aware of and be influencing?
Right. So the businesses that I work with that I would consider exemplar or more advanced with AI, their leadership is very focused in on how AI is going to be used both internal and external with customers. That right there is the starting point for a success with L&D. Now, there's many other layers that are involved before I know or I feel confident that I can go in and see the runway where L&D can use AI to its fullest, right? So the other things that I'm looking at are AI operations. How does that show up? What's happening with IT? What does the whole entire tech stack look like? Are they a Microsoft company? Are they Google business? How is AI going to show up for those associates and for L&D? Is it going to be through a portal? And that seems to be a popular option to where IT designates certain AI models that all associates can use, and those are accessed through a portal, and that seems to work out fairly well. The opposite side of that is that if that isn't aligned, then we see a lot of bottom-up activity where individuals are using whatever model that they want, which there's some risk to that. The other function that really helps in seeing alignment with L&D, with AI, is change management. And I believe if an organization has a strong change management function, they're going to be working lockstep with L&D to implement AI cross-function within the organization, specific around upskilling or getting certain functions tuned to what AI can potentially do. Then there's HR. And how does L&D interface in with HR, specific around the change of roles and the impact of AI on certain roles, and what does that mean to the individual associate? Are they going to be upskilled into a different role? What does that look like? So there's many facets that need to be in place for L&D to truly show up with AI.
So if I am L&D, I'm a learning development leader, and my organization, the organization as a whole, doesn't have a strategy in place, what's the danger?
Yeah, there's a lot of risk. So what I've seen is a lot of bottom-up activity. Even individual people using their mobile phone to prompt and get a result and then email the results back to themselves. So when I go and I speak, I do straw polls, or I go and have these individual conversations, and it's pretty shocking what's happening out there. People still want to understand what's happening with AI. How does it impact my work? How can I use it day in and day out? And they're going to go ahead and use the tools, whether it's allowed or not allowed. So, at a minimum, even if the leadership or the organization isn't aligned on how it's going to use AI, if legal and HR put out an AI policy, even if it's a rough AI policy, that at least is a starting point, because now you have guardrails that associates can use to confidently use AI, and would also go ahead and detail any kind of risk mitigation, talking about bias and ethics in the models, hallucinating or the AI model making things up. And these risks, they need to be acknowledged before really any associate begins to use AI.
So where do I turn to get the guidance on what that policy needs to be so that I can help HR and organizational leaders get that policy in place?
Well, last week I did a show. I do have a live show each Friday called Brain Power, and I went in and detailed how to create that AI policy. I'll be more than happy to share that link. And just for context, before I go in and do a webinar or any type of work with an organization, they must have an AI policy in place. It just doesn't make sense for me as a professional to go in and give guidance when I know that they won't be able to execute properly on that guidance if that policy is not in place. So I have worked with organizations, HR departments, and in tandem, work with legal and work with IT or cybersecurity to get that policy in place. It is a cross-function effort. It's just not the HR or L&D team putting out this policy. There are many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to creating that policy.
Yeah, and it seems to me that our role in L&D, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be leading and guiding and helping get that in place, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's in partnership with HR or with comms and change management. There's a lot of activation points that are going on. There's behavior change that's happening, in addition to knowledge that needs to be gained as far as what are the risks and what are the benefits of the technology. Just from a behavior standpoint, you have many associates that are just apprehensive about using it, or depending upon their view, they're really kind of put off on the technology, especially from a copyright or legal standpoint.
Yeah, and it seems to me that there's also the danger of a lack of understanding of the degree in which you can put guardrails around AI and the whole security issues and so forth.
Right.
We've got to be knowledgeable enough to be able to help the organization make a decision and make wise decisions that will allow us to take advantage of all that's possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now let's turn our attention to HR. So
Okay.
from L&D to HR, what does that look like? So we've got the
Mm.
organization, now HR.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there's an undercurrent that's happening in regards to roles and jobs that are going to be impacted by AI and how companies want to handle those associates that are going to feel that impact. Is there an opportunity to upskill them and get them into a tangential role? Makes sense. Currently in the job market, companies have a hard time keeping individuals. And the last thing you want is to have some type of environment where your associates understand that jobs are being taken by AI and there's no plan around it. That would be a horrible environment to work in.
Yeah.
And so, the relationship with L&D and HR is to find out exactly what is the game plan in regards to roles that are impacted by AI. And then as a function, how does L&D support the upskilling or transition of those individuals into that new role? It just doesn't make sense. There's activity happening out there where call center associates are being replaced by AI. And I see it in the news, and there's reports of that type of activity happening. Well, what happens to those call center associates? They have a body of knowledge. They've been working there for years. Do they slide into a sales function or sales support role? Maybe external? What does that look like? What is their path within the organization? And so I think it's really critical that L&D work with HR leaders to try to figure out what does that look like and how does that show up?
Yeah, because then it's our role to upskill, right, as you said, and to help them get to that place. And that's where our focus on workflow learning is so important, where people can learn while working and make those transitions to new ways of working. That's just such a vital role for us to be playing. There's a human side of this that we can't lose sight of, and we have a responsibility to make sure that that is attended to in the right way.
I think that's a great point. The lens I'm putting on it right now is as if jobs are going to be completely replaced by AI, but odds are it's going to be an enhancement, not necessarily a replacement. So what does that look like?
Yeah,
If leadership really wants AI to show up and you are yourself as an individual is partnering with AI, well, what skills does that require? There's a there's a lot there. You have to be knowledgeable about the technology, about your role, and how they intersect, and then how are workflows impacted? What does that look like? And across your whole entire tech stack, do you have the right vendors in place? There's a lot of movement there, and I know people their heads are spinning trying to evaluate the current vendors that they have, how AI is showing up, and then what are the new platforms that are being created out there in the marketplace that are very AI centric.
yeah.
And would that be an advantage to actually, to get those vendors on board?
And so that brings us squarely into now how do we grow the L&D team to be able to lead in that way, right? How do we
Right.
grow them and all of us move forward and bring order to what feels chaotic, really, in all that's going on? So, any counsel and advice for that?
Yeah. It's a very difficult situation because we're building the plane and flying at the same time. When you look at the L&D function, is there a baseline digital literacy? Is there a common language that we all understand around AI so that we can have intelligent conversations around how it shows up across different functions? Because not only do we have to train our own individual associates within the L&D function, but then there's also that knowledge gap and skills gap that's occurring within the whole entire organization within each function itself. So there's a lot that's happening. And my recommendation for any L&D leader is to go talk with your peers, try to understand from their perspective the way that AI is going to show up within that function, whether it be sales or IT or whatever the case may be. And then are there avenues that we can help support that, either through, creating very specific organizational type content around AI policy, or can we leverage a LinkedIn Learning or Open Sesame or another type of platform to make content accessible to where our individual associates can go ahead and upskill themselves on AI, but very focused in on that function?
Yeah.
It's challenging.
So if you were to put together a plan for some basic recommendations on how I grow as a L&D professional, can you give me some tactical guidance to help me there?
Yeah, the thing is to understand how the technology works. Much in the same way, that we have to work with the internet, we have to work with mobile phones. How does it function? How does it work? And once you have a baseline, once you understand how a large language model works, or a diffusion model, if we're talking about images or audio or video, that type of thing, that's a great starting point. It's going to go ahead and give you agency as you begin to put more strategies together around AI. So, get that baseline understanding of the technology. How does it work?
Let's look, because there are different arenas where AI is moving forward.
Yep.
Can you give us just a high-level view of those different arenas of AI work that's going on, like large language models, conversational AI versus
Sure.
Generative AI.
Yes. Yeah. So let's break that down. So we have, and this is where it does get confusing, because you can take a look at it from the standpoint of, I need to use AI as a partner. I need to use AI to create content. I need to use AI to do problem solving or even be creative, right? That's one aspect. The other aspect is I want to go ahead and leverage AI to create a unique experience for the user as a chatbot, as a digital tutor, as a digital coach. And how does that show up? Those are very distinct ways that AI can be leveraged within an L&D function. Let's go ahead and take the first one with the LLM. So in that area, we're taking a look at different AIs, generative AI, that can assist us in building in productivity in what we do day in and day out from a workflow standpoint. So if I'm creating micro-learning, a video, job aid, whatever the case may be, multiple choice questions is a favorite of mine, especially writing those distractors. What does that look like? Can we leverage Gen AI to expedite the content creation process and build in those efficiencies? All right. That's across all media, not just text, but audio, video, animations, that kind of thing. So, again, we can take a look across all the AI tools that are out there, and can we build in proficiencies there? And that's across the whole learning journey, not just content creation. So if I want to go ahead and build an awareness piece or priming, even before a training event or some type of content, and then, your favorite is the post-training or the, the performance support afterwards, what does that look like? And, this is really where the magic happens, because once an individual begins to understand the possibilities, you begin to think differently about your workflows. For instance, you and I are having a great conversation, and that transcript of this conversation can be leveraged into multiple formats. Take the transcript, turn it into a blog post, or we can go ahead and just make a couple, social media posts about it up on LinkedIn. And AI can be there as a partner to go in and help transform that media. And I believe that's the biggest upside, is that once you wrap your arms around the possibilities, you begin to think differently about the ways that you go in and use your workflows, leverage AI to go ahead and create that content.
Yeah, it seems to me, as I look across what's going on across our industry, generative AI is where most of the focus lies, although the focus is on the formal learning side rather than really the performance support. Obviously, the 5 moments of need is an important framework to us, which is the moments of apply, solve, and change, which aren't getting the attention that learning new and learning more seems to be getting the attention. But we're moving forward and figuring things out there, although there's some holes in our approach, it seems to me. Your thoughts about that?
Right. So, yeah, that's a big one, because out of the gate, if we're talking about this time last year, solution setting around chatbots, around digital tutors, digital coaches, very hot talk. And there is some movement in those areas, but what I've found is that we're still in an extremely high risk environment. We still don't know everything about these large language models. Even if you build a custom model, how does it show up? What are the guardrails that we put on these specific functions to make sure that they're safe? We're seeing out in the marketplace, people are trying to stretch and try new things. I know that Air Canada, there was this report about how they put a external support chat bot up on their website. Gentlemen wanted to find out about bereavement and compensation for a ticket. And the chat bot said, yes, purchase the ticket, and within 90 days, we will reimburse you. It made it up. It completely made up that policy. And so the guardrails were not set. It went to court, and the gentleman won. And Air Canada was saying that the chatbot was not a representative of the company, and that didn't fly over well, no pun intended. So, I think that is just one example of the challenges that we face, all best intentions. I mean, we want to go out there, we want to support our associates by putting these great experiences out there that are personalized, that are unique, that are spot on in regards to the support that they need. But I believe it's in the backdrop of this high risk environment. And we need to build bridges and find out how to mitigate that risk so that we can start taking advantage of this technology. So I think it's going to be this path of working with vendors, of making mistakes. Some of them might be a little painful, but eventually we're going to get to a point where we're going to have tools, we're going to have technology, they're going to be aligned to where when you do want to go ahead and support those 5 moments of need, that you'll be able to go ahead and support the whole entire 5 moments.
And so beyond generative AI, there's a lot of work moving forward on conversational AI, moving to agentive AI agents. Do you want to just share some insights there?
Sure. Yeah, the big term is agentic, which is a new term for me. So I love dropping that term whenever I can. It's interesting because I was doing some work this week around the maturation, or what happens and how do we get to an agent. And so the way that I see it is that, we begin with a prompt, and that prompt is going to do some type of task for you. If it's a valuable prompt, you're going to put it into a prompt library where it can be shared, where you can reference back to it, where it can be modified. I know that in the marketplace, there's a lot of leapfrogging around models. Currently, Claude 3, Opus, and some of the other Claude 3 models are ending up being more superior than GPT-4. And so are your prompts, can they flex? Can they actually work with a different model? Once you go from a prompt library, you create a workflow library. So you take those prompts and you put it into a workflow. One workflow that I have is a YouTube workflow. I need to make a YouTube title. I have to go in and make a video script. I need to take that video script or the output from the YouTube video and convert it into a blog post. So now I have a workflow. Once that's vetted, now we can get into automations of those prompts and those workflows. So now we're taking a look at like Zapier or some other platforms out there to where we can take those well-tuned, highly used prompts from our library, put them in the automation and test the automation. Then we can finally get to an agent. And even like those agents, I consider them semi-autonomous. Like there's going to be agents to where it could be completely autonomous, but realistically, the best agents are going to be the ones that are going to be working lockstep with a human. And they're going to do some work and say, whoa, put on the brake. I need a human to vet this out. Hey, it looks good. Continue. And the agent continues doing the work to the point where I believe that we will get to a fully autonomous agent, even agents that create additional agents to vet work and then, complete the task. So it is a process. A majority of L&D departments, though, will probably only get to a prompt library or maybe even a workflow library. Automations and agents, once those are being built, they got to be supported. They got to be documented. They got to be tested. And what happens when your resources or whoever created that leaves the company? What's going to happen when it breaks? Right? So it seems like there's a lot of risk and a lot of pain points associated with agents. We're going to get there. But again, I think it's going to be through vendors and those types of companies that are willing to give us platforms and give us ways to actually leverage that technology without that risk so that we can easily transition from one associate to another, whoever created the initial agent.
So here's the good news. There is so much for us to school ourselves up and to guide and to help the organization, to help L&D, to help with the change management, to help with operations, that, we've got some work ahead of us, and we just need to help the organization see how valuable we are in navigating that. And then the whole skilling up the organization to be able to take advantage of all of those capabilities, right?
Yeah, I think creating a framework around the AI knowledge and skills that are required for the organization and supporting that framework is instrumental for the whole company to be effective with AI. That's a huge ask for the L&D department, but I think it is essential. I don't see many L&D departments taking that on. They're so focused in on their current tasks and what's required of them day in and day out, that to actually go ahead and take on the way that it shows up for the whole organization, that requires a lot of leadership buy-in, a lot of support across peers, across functions, and that's going to take some work. Now, what I have seen out there that has been successful, this is very exciting, is I do have one customer where they have been working with AI, and they're very mature in the way that AI shows up. They have, from an operational standpoint, all the things that we talked about before, they're in place, right? To the point to where now these prompts that they're using are being placed in automations, and they're building dashboards to illustrate their productivity gains based upon their tasks. And that's currently in flight. So I cannot wait to see what kind of productivity gains are coming back from these dashboards, with their usage of AI.
This is a hopeful future, it seems to me. There are wonderful opportunities ahead for us if we'll just step into it and take advantage of those opportunities. Anything you want to say as we bring an end to this session?
For individuals that are on the fence or that are apprehensive, take the time and get out there and try a prompt. It may not make sense initially, but I believe that as we move forward, that AI is going to be a partner, and it's something you really shouldn't be afraid of. There's a lot of, again, risk that's currently out there, but I think over time that risk will be mitigated, and we'll find ourselves in a place to where we can show up better for the people that we serve day in and day out, and AI is going to be a catalyst for that.
Thank you, Josh, for sharing your experience and knowledge with us today. And everyone out there who's listening, there is a bright future. And that future, we just need to grab hold and jump in and learn, which is what we know how to do. We know how to learn. It's in that learning through experience, learning experientially, that we're going to grow and develop and be able to help the organization in all the ways that we need to. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Con.
Well, that's it for this episode of the 5 Moments of Need AI Matters podcast series. We look forward to future conversations about how to best put the 5 Moments of Need into practice with artificial intelligence. We welcome your feedback and can be reached on LinkedIn at the 5 Moments of Need or on our website, www.5momentsofneed.com. We hope you're finding these helpful and that you'll subscribe for future episodes. Have a great day, friends.